What up, y'all? St. Pete. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about politics no more, but I was just a little fired up yesterday listening to Max Egan. That's how I get when I listen to Max Egan. He gets me all fired up. But I find it interesting, when I was growing up, I'm 38. When I was growing up, it was like a secret who you were voting for. Like, voted for, you went into the booth, you did your thing, and like, you didn't discuss it with nobody. It was kind of just something, your own personal decision. And, it was very much, you know, kept secret, per se. And now you see with the people with the banners and the signs out front of their house and all over the roads. I just like wonder what is that? Like what is that people put who they're voting for like right out there in the open for everyone to see? Like what's the point of it? Is it to do they think that someone's going to drive by that sign and be like, oh man, so and so's voting for that person, and so and so likes this person, and maybe I should? Or they see enough of them signs, it convinces them to go and do it. Like, I don't understand. Or the people that, like yesterday I seen a dude with a Trump flag that was bigger than his damn pickup truck, and got like Trump, and I guess it was magnetic letters, like along the side of his truck, and a giant flag. Like, this shit is just weird to me, coming from what looking back at the progression of this, from when I was young. It's like it's a damn football team or something. People, part of this, they think they're part of this team, this group identity. It's just real weird how that transition happened. And I wonder when it was exactly that this whole idea of putting like the signs out front of your house and putting the signs everywhere, and then letting everybody know who it is that you're voting for, and when all that started. I mean, it's probably around the time of the internet, because I remember when there was no internet. I can specifically remember when I first went on to a search engine, and it was probably like I was around 19 or something, 20 possibly. And shout outs to my man Rossi. What's up, Roscoe? um yeah, I was working at Steve Steaks, and he was telling me about the World Bank. And like, for some reason, it just made sense to me. Like, I had never heard of the World Bank or central banks at that point in my life. And my man was breaking it down to me, and I was like, man, that's crazy. He was like, yeah, we go to my house after work, and we can look it up. I look it up. Oh, okay, whatever. Let's get to his crib, and we go to the computer. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, you can just type something in to the computer, and it'll search things for you. It'll bring stuff up. And we did it. We did Rothschilds. The first thing I specifically remember, the first thing that I ever viewed or put into a search engine was Rothschilds. And it changed my life. It was the beginning of the, well, I shouldn't say it wasn't the beginning of the tilling of the soil that allowed me to keep evolving into you know you know this idea of activism, or this idea of conspiracy theory, whatever you want to call it. um it started taking a little bit more root, but at that time I was still caught up in destroying my own community, and I was part of the problem at that time, and I wasn't really able to put it together in a holistic way. Like, I wasn't able to, I was seeing things as, isolated events, and I wasn't able to really realize that, like, the whole, pill epidemic that, is now national news. You know what I mean? Like, this idea of the opioid epidemic, being national news and being, a talking point. Well, that shit was going on in my neighborhood was like ground zero, and I'm sure there was other neighborhoods as well, but I mean, it was that pill stuff in Northeast Philadelphia, that like started in my neighborhood in Frankfurt. And it started with the Xanax. If you was from Frankfurt, you did Xanax. I mean, we would take Xanax here and there. I mean, it was no big deal on the weekends. Take a blue or something, and you know, and then there was the arrival of like Percocet fives, and it was Perc fives, and you couldn't get nothing stronger than that. It really wasn't, you know, the tens weren't on the scene yet. There weren't 15s, there weren't 30s, there wasn't, Oxy 80s, like none of that stuff, was around. And as it progressed, as I got into high school, and by I guess maybe like sophomore, junior year, you know, we're seeing now these Percocet 10s, and then from the 10s it jumped right to the 80s, Oxycontin 80s, which is there's really no difference between Oxy 80s and Percocets. It's still oxycodone, and Oxycontin is just the name of a company. And just a quick side note that, when them Oxycontins first came out, that Oxycontin company told people that, well, these aren't addicting. These won't get you addicted to them because they have a time release. So because there's a time release, you won't get addicted to Oxycontin. And that was the idea that they were pushing, in their commercials and stuff. You could see it. And but the funny thing is that they had already, the patents for Suboxone, at that time. So at that time, they're telling us, that these Oxycontins aren't addicting. They're already, looking 10 steps ahead and setting up the Suboxones. So why would you set up the Suboxones to get you off of the oxys or whatever, the oxycodone, if they weren't addicted to begin with? So, and obviously, looking back on it now, it becomes very more obvious. But I mean, we went from a time in my neighborhood where it was, we came across Percocets once in a while. It was, whatever. But I mean, and then just like all of a sudden, I mean, it was flooded. I mean, I could get rid of just for me personally, you know what I mean? Like, to get rid of, and I could get rid of 1,000 a week, just about, you know what I mean? Whether I was wholesaling or I had individual customers, 1,000 a week, that was pretty easy. Or it could be more than that, And I mean, they were there. I mean, I could go and buy pretty much an unlimited amount of Percocet 10s, to be exact. They were everywhere. So they went from being nowhere to everywhere. And then the Oxy 80s, the Oxycontin 80s, because they were killing people, because they were taking off the time release and, snorting them, and, you're getting 80 milligrams, a shot of 80 milligrams at one time and dying. You know, they kind of scaled that back and, you know, introduced the 30s onto the scene. You know, they introduced this the Percocets without the acetaminophen, whatever it's called. You know, and they had these like 30 milligrams, and they had the 15s, and you know, they started basically just making straight, you know, oxycodones. And I mean, like I said, they were everywhere, and like my neighborhood was the hub. You know, most people that did pills and did drugs, they came to my neighborhood to get the drugs because they didn't want to go to North Philly. And at that time, North Philly wasn't even fucking around selling pills at that time. Maybe some e-pills, but you know, this was strictly like in the white neighborhoods. You know, we sold pills, and you know, the white dudes did pills, and a lot of them came from the neighborhoods that were above my neighborhood. So they weren't really cool with going to North Philly like, you know, we were, because we went to North Philly to get our weed growing up. Like it really wasn't no big deal for me to go to North Philly or whatever corner it was at that time to get weed. I mean, it was a drive-through. Like, you didn't even have to get out your car half the time. So, you know, we see this flood of opioids, and now, mind you, there isn't even at this time, like, the people in my neighborhood weren't quite, you know, there weren't perk heads yet. There weren't people that were, you know, on this drug. Like, they had to wake up in the morning and take it before they go to work, or they were sick, and you know, it was a weekend thing, you know, and then in my high school days, you know, it wasn't yet, you know, took the grip that it came to as the years went on, and you know, people just kept doing them and doing them to the point where the prices of the Percocets, you know, were too expensive. So a lot of the people moved on to heroin. Because if you listen to any of these heroin addicts, and there's a dude that has a channel called Morals Over Money, and like, the dude's mad thorough, and he interviews a lot of cats down there in Kensington who are on dope or were on dope or whatever, and you'll hear pretty much almost all of them say that they started with Percocets first. They started popping painkillers, and you know, that gradually led to them, you know, becoming addicted, and then they couldn't afford it no more because the Oxycontins, and you know, they were $50 a piece, and you know, people needed multiple of them a day, and it was just becoming too much money for them, and they you know, graduated into heroin, snorting heroin, and then eventually they were shooting heroin, and you know, because I couldn't even begin to name all the people that I know that have died from heroin, you know, or pills, whatever, you know what I mean, opioids. I mean, it affected every single family in my community, whether you were personally affected, or it was your child that was affected, or it was your mother, or it was your father, or it was your cousin, you know, whether they became addicted to the pills themselves, or they were put in jail, you know, because they were selling the pills, you know what I mean? Like, there's not a family that wasn't affected in my community. Prior to this being a national talking point, this was going on in Frankfurt. And when we start to put the dots together of like what was really going on, you know, that these pharmaceutical companies, which no different again, it's government, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, like, you say it's big pharma, what's the difference? You know, it's all the same. It's all the same characters. Once we start getting higher up the food chains, it's the same people. Um, we see at that time us go into Afghanistan with this with 9/11, which is, you know, if you still believe 9/11, you still believe the narrative of 9/11, like, might as well turn this off now, because, you know, you need to go research that before you even listen to a dude like me. That if you still think that the narrative that they gave is what happened that day, and yeah. So, Afghanistan, where all the heroin comes from. You know, how many, you know, you just countless, um, you know, testimonies of, you know, soldiers guarding poppy fields, and, you know, that's where, you know, the best dope came from, you know. So, you know, you see the amount of heroin coming into this country, um, you know, after we invaded fucking Afghanistan. And we see that, and it just makes you wonder. It's like they were priming my generation. And mind you, they did it to those in Vietnam. Vietnam, you know, they were bringing the dope in. They were getting people hooked on dope in Vietnam, and then they were coming back here, and, you know, that's a whole another story. But as far as like this current crisis, this the current pandemic, which is really the opioid crisis, that's way more of a pandemic than this COVID bullshit. You know what I mean? There's way more people dying from opioids than there is COVID. There's way more families being ruined from fucking opioids than fucking COVID. So don't tell me what the fucking pandemic is. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. So me being involved in that, poisoning my community for years, and being involved in that trade, which was lucrative, you know. I eventually got arrested. I got caught red-headed right in the middle of a deal by, you know, narcos sitting in a parking lot. And, you know, it was an amazing day, because it changed my life, because, you know, that event happening, and I remember sitting in the back of the cop car like, man, my life is going to change from this point on. And, you know, I wasn't quite aware of how it was going to change, but I knew that from that point on, shit was going to be different. I was thinking more along the lines like, I'm going to be a convicted felon, and, you know, my life is going to be harder or whatever. And, you know, I ended up just getting some house arrest. But being on that house arrest is when I started really looking into all these conspiracies, and really started putting it all together, and realizing, like, damn, like, this shit is way bigger than just, you know, isolated events like the assassination of Kennedy, or, you know, 9/11, or Oklahoma, or, you know, the Rothschild Bank. And I mean, they're all tied together. All of that is the same thing. There's only really one conspiracy. You know, it's not. These are all relevant to each other. This is all the same thing going on here. So, for me, it was the game changer, because I started looking at things like, wow, like, man, they really tore up my neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like, they straight up destroyed my community with the drugs, you know, and then, you know, with the subprime mortgage, and, you know, Section 8 and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, it went from a neighborhood of homeowners to people that no longer own their homes, so they really didn't give a shit about the home or whatever. And, you know, the neighborhood mixed that with the idea that we were all selling drugs. Like, we were fucking our neighborhood up too. We were destroying families too, you know. And it it is more clear to me now that, like, they were just, you know, taking people out. You know, they were basically just destroying it and taking warriors out. potential warriors out left and right. Because when I think about it, like when I think about how it was when I was growing up, and there would be 50 of us on a corner, and just hanging out or whatever, and I think about like now, like man, if still had that kind of community, and with what we're going through these days, it would be like being able to have more people to talk to, and like communicate this information to, that already knew who I was, or who each other was, prior to all this kind of information coming out with the advent of the internet. The internet changed everything. It changed the whole world. And it's just interesting to note how much things have changed since the internet, for good and for bad. On one hand, it's got people beefing over stupid shit that doesn't really have any bearing, but it also allowed for people that took advantage of the internet to research things, and study things, and sit in lectures that they couldn't have been in otherwise, or able to get books that they couldn't get. It opened up a lot of doors. But I just wanted to talk about that, how that opioid crisis, how that ties into everything. It's the number that it has done on the country, and done on individual communities and individual families. It's out of control. And like I remember when it all started. I remember when there weren't people addicted to that stuff, and just gradually it became an everyday thing for people, to the point where they couldn't control it no more. And it just makes me wonder, like, they plan ahead. The powers that be plan ahead. Did they want people to just be high? They knew that eventually they were going to put the foot down on people, and they gave people these happy drugs, and everybody's high and nobody gives a shit. And like that's what kind of pisses me off the most, that like I'll tell other men about this kind of stuff, and they don't even care. Like, they don't even get mad. Like, how do you not get mad when you're like, these people purposely fucked up countless amounts of families, countless amounts of communities, countless amounts of the whole country. You know what I mean? Like, they fucked so much stuff up, and people still believe in it. They still think that there's some type of hope for it, even though all the amount of damage that they have done. And they don't care. Like, they don't even get motivated to try and figure out, like, yo, like, what's really going on. And I'm not saying I'm right about everything, but I'm pissed off. Like, I was pissed off when I was on house arrest, and I was finding out all this stuff. Man, that pissed me off. And that gave me that anger gave me the motivation to want to just keep going with it, and run with it, and just keep going further, and keep evolving in my acquiring knowledge. And I mean, like I said, that was 10 years ago that happened to me, and I haven't put the books down. I haven't stopped. I haven't took a break from it. Because this shit is that real. There's a war going on out here, and most people are just very unaware of it. They don't even, but you don't even belong on the battlefield if you don't even belong on the battlefield in this war if you don't know what's going on. And again, it comes down to like, they don't even care about wearing a mask. I mean, half of the people I talk to are like, yeah, it doesn't do nothing. I know it's not gonna stop anything, but they still wear it anyway, and they're not even mad that they have to wear it. Like, I don't get it. Like, the way they have demasculated men, it's crazy to me. Like, they don't even get upset no more. They get more mad at a fucking football game than they do about families being ruined on purpose. They get more mad about some game, some fucking men in tights running around playing with balls than they do about like what's going on in the world. And it's just goofy to me. And you know, I just see a real lack of testicular fortitude in men. And you know, you think that you're gonna avoid this. You think you could just not think about it and it's gonna go away, and you don't want to look at it because you got children, and it scares you or whatever. Like, it only scares you because you don't know what's going on. Once you know what's going on, you're no longer scared of things that you know about. You only get scared at first, and once you dive into it, go head on into the information, you're no longer scared no more. And you really got to go head on with this. Like, you can't stick your head in the ground, like, because with this whole COVID thing, like, this shit ain't going away. It ain't going away, and they're gonna piggyback on to it a whole bunch of other things, like the climate thing. Like, you watch, they're gonna tell us now that, oh, because we shut everything down, and it's shut down, that the global warming's getting better, which is a whole nother lie too. Global warming's a whole nother lie. That's another story, but that's all bullshit, and it's going to develop into that. They're going to say it got better, and locking things down. So we're going to have to do lockdowns more because this COVID thing's losing its steam. Because it's not even really fucking anybody up anymore. I mean, yeah, they got cases, but everybody got coronaviruses in them. I mean, I don't even it's stupid, and the test is inaccurate, and the mask is a piece of cloth on your face. Like, that cloth isn't stopping a fucking virus. I don't even. It's just goofy, So they're going to have to, unless they turn that 5G up. Now, it's interesting that the 5G causes the same symptoms as COVID. So if these cases and these symptoms start sparking up again, it would make me think, because I've done my research in the 5G and the effects that has, that's what's going on. And I see that now because my 4G phone isn't working good. All of a sudden, I'm not getting good service. All of a sudden, it's becoming a pain in the ass with the 4G, and we know that's what they do. That's how they do it. They'll fuck with that, and they're gonna force everybody to get the 5G, and and the cycle continues. But this shit isn't going nowhere, man. It isn't, and they're gonna they're going to just keep pushing harder and harder. And this is the time for people to stand up because, once this AI and quantum technology is really in full effect, man, you're not going to have a chance to stand up. You're not going to hear dudes like me. You're not going to hear dudes like Max Egan. You're not going to hear dudes like Mark Passio. You're not going to hear none of these guys that have been giving us knowledge for so many years. Like, that's just going to be done. We'll be in FEMA camps, and it's going to be funny when we're in FEMA camps and I'm sitting there with the fucking the fucking Antifas and the Trump supporters, and we're all sitting in a FEMA camp together, right? Yeah, we're going to be sitting in there together, and I'm going to fucking smack both of you at that point, because you two are out here fighting with each other when we're all about to be fucked. Like, yous are beefing amongst each other when we're all about to feel this, and that's why they're doing it. That's why they're pushing so hard, this division, dividing us, because that's how they're going to conquer us. While we're fighting each other, they're sneaking in all this shit. And I mean, like, Trump going to be gone at best in 4 years, and like everything that's being done behind closed doors that we don't know about, when he's gone, like, for those who think he's the savior, like, when he's gone, like, then what? All right, who's gonna like, take it from there? Because there ain't, you ain't gonna see another one like him. You'd be lucky if you even see another president, to be honest with you. But It's time for the men to wake up, man. It's time for the men to, grab your nuts and tell them no more. We're not taking it no more. We're not taking none of this. We're not taking none of this shit that they're telling us. The mainstream is telling us and running with it no more. We're questioning everything that they say because they have been guilty of lying to us for so many years. So, enjoy your week, and be dangerous to those who threaten freedom. St. Pete, I'm out. Peace.